Hi guys! First cooking video. I figured I would keep it simple and do something that I've done a million times, which is homemade macaroni and cheese. I know that sounds complicated, but it's actually not. So I'm gonna jump right into it and show you how I make it, and then we'll go from there. So for starters, you need a 1/4 cup of butter, and you're gonna drop that right into your saucepan and let it start to melt down. In the meantime, you have to have your 1/4 cup of flour ready because we're making a roux. Again, fancy French word for butter and flour mixed together in a pan. The trick is don't burn it. That's really it. It sounds complicated. It's not. Some other ingredients you're going to need: 2 cups of milk and 8 ounces of the cheese you're going to be using. I use 1 type of cheese. It's pretty simple. It's white American, not really fancy, but it's what we prefer. But you can do cheddar, you can mix it up with some cream cheese, Gruyere, Parmesan, literally play with it or choose to your liking. So I'm getting my butter going here, and once it's melted down, I'm gonna add the flour to it and stir, because it's going to quickly congeal and start to, lump up, and I want to keep it smooth. And while I'm doing that, the idea is going to be to get it to bubble just a tiny bit. So not burn, but bubble. And it happens pretty quickly. Once we get it to bubble, we're going to add the seasoning. Sometimes with these recipes, they ask you to add the seasoning later on. I tend to prefer my seasonings to melt in with my butter, and in this case with my roux. So my butter's all melted, and I'm adding my flour. And I have my heat on the lower end so that I can prevent the flour from scorching, because again, that's really the only trick to roux. Don't let the butter and the flour burn. Okay, so as I said, pretty quickly, I'm already getting a nice bubble, and I'm gonna show you what this looks like so you have an idea of what to expect. So it's kind of running down to the bottom, but it's just a little foamy almost is the texture. Now that it's bubbling, I'm gonna add my milk. Again, on the low heat for a moment here so that we don't scorch anything. And I'm going to whisk. So the whisking part is just to break up those roux bits that may have clumped up together while you were making it and mix them into the milk. Now you want to turn your heat up a little bit because you're going to want the milk to come to a bit of a bubble. So now that we have that going, I'm just going to keep gently stirring it with my wooden spoon, basically in an effort to make sure that the milk doesn't burn or curdle on the bottom of this. It will boil pretty quickly because my pan is already warm. In the meantime, while you're doing all of this, set your oven to 350 if you're going to bake. You have a couple choices here. If you are limited on time and you want a really creamy, warm macaroni and cheese, then you can not bake it. I prefer it baked, and in fact, I'm going to show you how to add a little crunchy topping to the baking if you'd like. So I realize now that I skipped the step I told you was important, which was to add the seasoning before the milk. So we're gonna add it now, and basically it's a pinch of salt, a pinch of pepper, and then the secret ingredient, which is about a tablespoon of California onion. So a lot of homemade recipes for macaroni and cheese call for an actual onion, because there's something about the onion flavor in macaroni and cheese that just brings all the ingredients together and makes it delicious. I don't know if you can hear my kids screaming in the background, but I promise they're okay. They're just playing a game. So now that I've added all of my seasonings and the milk has been brought to a boil, it's starting to really thicken up. I'm just gonna shut off the heat and continue stirring for a few minutes. So back to the onion discussion. If you like onions and this is a grown-up lasagna, or you have kids who like the crunch of onions, which mine don't, you can add an actual onion to this. Of course, you can add a Vidalia or a nice shallot actually would be delicious. But my kids don't like to crunch on onions, and this is a dish I make when I want comfort food and I have to feed the kids. So it's sort of like straddling the line between adult macaroni and cheese, if there is such a thing, and kid macaroni and cheese. So let me give you a little view of what this thickened roux milk mixture looks like. So it's nice and creamy. It already looks like it's becoming macaroni and cheese. So the next step is to add your cheese. And it's 8 ounces. And you can put it in a bit at a time, but I just throw it all in there and mix till it's melted. That's my way. So once you start mixing around the cheese, the milk's super hot. It's gonna melt really quickly. It doesn't take long, and you don't really have to just stir it the whole time because the heat's off, so you're not scorching anything. So while I let that go, I'm gonna smell it. And I like to taste it, just a tiny bit. So I'm gonna use a different spoon. And I just wanna get an idea of the flavor profile. Make sure I added enough seasoning because I do it by hand and I don't always measure. So I don't want to make something and then be eating it later and be like, where's the onion? But it's perfect. So the thing about California onion and why I'm choosing that over regular onion powder, which you're welcome to use as well, is because the California onion has just like a little bit softer of a flavor profile. So you're getting that onion sensation. It's basically an essence in the dish, and it makes the cheese feel cheesier and more delicious. Which again, that I use American cheese. I like it to be sort of a simple cheesy flavor, but when I'm making something a little more grown up, I tend to use, you know, maybe a little truffle oil and some Gruyere in it, and that's just a totally different dish. So this is all mixed up, and now we're gonna move on to part B, if you're following along with that, which is to make a breadcrumb topping. So I make a breadcrumb topping and bake mine because I like that little bit of a crunch in there, and because that's the only way one of my kids will eat it. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. So basically you need olive oil and 1 heaping cup of panko breadcrumbs. I choose the seasoned panko breadcrumbs because I don't want to have to flavor it unnecessarily. And having that little bit of Italian seasoning in it is a little garlicky, a little herby, and it just lends flavor to the top of the dish. So you want a tablespoon of oil. I'm putting mine in my cast iron. Maybe a little more. And you just want to get it warm and spread around the pan. It's not a big process. Again, the idea is for it to be pretty and beautiful and delicious, but also simple. So we're making a simple breadcrumb topping. That's why it's already flavored, ready to go. We're just gonna toast it a tiny bit and top it. In the meantime, while the oil's heating up and I have my delicious cheese sauce, I'm going to add my 8 ounces of elbow pasta to it. I've already obviously pre-cooked this. So because I am going to be baking mine, I pre-cooked mine just al dente because it's gonna go into the oven and cook a little bit more, and I don't want the noodles to break down. But if you're making this, which is also delicious by itself without baking it, then you may want to cook yours a little bit longer, or if you prefer it al dente, then obviously cook it al dente. So I'm gonna mix this all up. I'm gonna take a bite because that's what I do. partly because I want to know the flavor and partly because I like to eat. So, moment of truth. Perfect. That's delicious. Do you want to try it? Good flavor. Thank you. Nope, let me finish it up and then we'll have it. I'll see you in a minute. Thanks, guys. Okay, so oil's hot, macaroni and cheese is prepped. I'm gonna add my panko breadcrumbs to this hot oil. And just toss it around. Coat it with the oil and to give it that tiny little bit of a toast. Again, the key is literally just to not burn it, that's all. And I know that sounds like an easy task, but I have actually burned my panko breadcrumbs before. And it was the last I had in the house, and it was absolutely tragic. Tragedy. So these are also going to toast as they cook, but they are over mac and cheese and we don't want them to get soggy. And that's the reason behind this bit of toasting. Done. Now all we have left to do is assemble it. I'm gonna make some space here so I can show you my little process. I'm using my casserole dish. It's my favorite. It was my grandmother's. Super cute. And macaroni on top first. Not on top, but first. And as you can see, it's already delightful. It's gooey. It's cheesy. And it has that little bit of onion essence to make it special. This is a dish you can prep ahead of time. Make this whole thing to this stage and put it in the freezer or put it in the refrigerator, that other appliance. And that way it's ready to go. So I often make this before a date night, which tonight is a date night, because then it's something that I can either quickly heat for the kids if we're gonna be dating in, or the babysitter can quickly heat up for the kids if we're dining out. So it makes a quick and easy meal that I know they're gonna eat, I don't have to stress about it, and that the babysitter is gonna like also. So I'm making salmon tonight for Joe and I. And I have a vegetarian child who obviously won't eat fish, which would be delightful. And I have another child who would love to eat the fish, but they're gonna be having their own movie night while we have our date night. So that's the reason why we're prepping our mac and cheese now. So let me move it. So you can see, I'm just gonna gently toss this over top. And I see that I nailed it in my proportions because there's plenty of crustiness. And I'm just gonna move it to fill in some of the gaps. Doesn't have to be perfect because it's gonna just kind of be an easy and beautiful and delicious macaroni and cheese. There's such a thing. I'm gonna pop this in the oven and then I'll show you the results. Thanks. Okay, we're back and it's finished. I knew that because it was bubbling, not because I set a timer, but it probably was about 25 minutes. So it looks nice and crispy and yummy. And we're gonna give it a try. Wow, so pretty. Best macaroni and cheese ever. Comfort food. It's raining out. I'm gonna eat this because why not? I made it. And thanks for joining me to watch this. If you have any questions, just message me with them. And if you want substitutions for a healthier version, certainly reach out. I have lots of ideas for that. So thank you. Make some macaroni and cheese. Enjoy.